Rama Rama Hari 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 Rama Rama Hari 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 Rama Rama Hari 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 Rama Rama Hari Hari Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari Hari. Yeah, you know, he's been trying to get. Okay, devotees, Hare Krishna. So we, just a sec. What now? What's going on here? Oi, oi, oi. Okay. So devotees, yes. Let us begin our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar. Hare Krishna. First of all, let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Niravishesha Shunyavadi Paschityadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Pramanityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakapatarubhyas cha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patita anam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So devotees, we are in the 10th chapter, and we finished last night. It was, I think, verse 27. Was it 27? I think so, yeah. So we're going to carry on from 28. And it's the title is of the chapter is Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka, and let me just see, what do I do here? Oh no, mistake. Right, here we go. Yeah, and the ladies of Hastinapur, they are upon their roofs, and they're looking down at Lord Krishna and appreciating how wonderful is Lord Krishna. It's just really beautiful description, really, really nice. And yes, we're up to verse 28. So, what now? Just a sec, yeah, okay. We're up to verse 28. So let us read the translation of chapter 10, verse 28. O friends, just think of his wives, whose hands he has accepted, how they must have undergone vows, baths, fire sacrifices, and perfect worship of the Lord of the universe, to constantly relish now the nectar from his lips by kissing. The damsels of Rajabhumi would often faint just by expecting such favors. Yes, so again, this is the ladies of Hastinapur, very pious and devotee ladies. There was a description, not yesterday, the day before, I think, that some of those ladies had association with Krishna before. So for them, the attraction was immediate. Well, yeah, it was very powerful. Some of them had not seen Krishna before, although, of course, they'd heard about him. And so, but still, just by hearing about him once, they became deeply attached to him. So, okay, let's have a look at the purport here. So, Srila Prabhupada says that these different types of religious rites, he refers to them as, mentioned in the verse, different vows, bathing. Baths means bathing in sacred places, like in bathing in the Ganges and sacred rivers, sacred kunds, and so on. Fire sacrifices, of course, and some worship of the Lord, but in a ritualistic way. So these things are meant to purify the conditioned souls so they can gradually come to the point of devotional service. And when, as Prabhupada explains here, when you're engaged in devotional service, then you gradually come to the point of perfection, the highest perfection. It's called Swarup, or the factual identity of the living entity. Our Swarup means our eternal form, our eternal identity, our eternal nature, who we are eternally as eternal servants of the Lord. Once we get engaged in devotional service, as long as we stick at it, then sooner or later it will come to that point where we will realize our Swarup, what is our eternal relationship with the Lord. And ultimately, this realization, this is real liberation. Yeah, it's real liberation. There's a verse, I think it's in the second canto, Muktir hitvanyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. Muktir, liberation, hitvanyata rupam, the real form. What is liberation? Is swarupena vyavastiti, realization of your eternal swarup, the same term used here. That's real liberation, the impersonal realization, even paramatma, which is not fully personal, it's just partially personal. Then this is not that ultimate, complete liberation. So Srila Prabhupada then goes on to talk further about what it means to realize your Swarup, your eternal relationship with the Lord, your eternal form, who you are eternally. So it means that you'll become established in whatever one of the 5 main rasas is your eternal position. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, or conjugal love. Yes. So then Krishna will then reciprocate with you. You'll associate with Krishna somewhere in the spiritual world. It could be Vaikuntha, it could be Goloka Vrindavan. And whatever your relationship is, Krishna, in the appropriate form, will interact with you. You'll become an associate of the Lord, either in Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan. Yes. So he'll become, if you realize servitude, he'll become your master. If you realize, if your relationship is in friendship, he'll become your friend. If your relationship is as a parent, then he'll become like, not actually your son, because that's Nanda and Yashoda, but you'll get a parental type of relationship like an uncle or a family friend of the pair of Nanda and Yashoda, like that. Yeah, so like this. And in this way, these ways, the Lord will reciprocate with you in terms of what is actually your Swarup. And Srila Prabhupada talks about the conjugal rasa. There are 2 types, Swakya and Parakya. Both of them are conjugal, but Swakya means a married relationship, Prabhupada explains, like the queens in Dwaraka. But the gopis the relationship was Parakya, unmarried. Swakya means married, Parakya means unmarried. Yes. So Prabhupada goes on, he's explaining all these things here. And then, a bit over halfway, maybe 2/3 or something like that, through the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the gopis and the queens, in order to get the positions as gopis and queens, they did a lot. They really did a lot of vows, baths, fire sacrifices, worship of the Lord as prescribed in Scripture. But those rites, those rituals are not ends in themselves and fruit of activities, cultivation of gyan without Krishna consciousness. These things also, they're not ends in themselves or mystical powers, but they're all means to attain. Actually, as Prabhupada explained, they're all means really to get the mercy of devotional service and then to advance and come to the perfect level. Yes. So that's the point here. And just as a point, a special thing, Prabhupada explains about towards the end of the purport, not quite there, but almost, the kissing of the Lord, either by his wives or the gopis, is not in the mundane sense, but it's simply that those devotees, they just want to please him by their affection and their closeness like that. So, and Prabhupada makes the point, had such things been mundane, a liberated soul like Shukadev wouldn't have got into them and relished them, and neither would Lord Chaitanya have said that, or after becoming a strict sannyasi of extreme strictness, he wouldn't have relished hearing the pastimes of these devotees. So in other words, it really takes a long time to reach that point. And it's a very elevated and totally transcendental point. So now we have a little comment here from Srila Jiva Goswami. He says, just remembering the sweetness of Krishna's nectar, Devatas, the demigods, are bewildered, but these human women taste it. Thus they alone are in the highest state of love. In other words, not the demigods. So, okay. So now verse 29. Verse 29. The children of these ladies are Pradyumna, Samba, Amba, etc. Ladies like Rukmini, Satyabhama, and Jambavati were forcibly taken away by him from their Swayamvara ceremonies after he defeated many powerful kings headed by Shishupal, and other ladies were also forcibly taken away by him after he killed Bhaumasura and thousands of his assistants. All of these ladies are glorious. Yeah. Right, so in the purport here, Srila Prabhupada explains that because the subject, first part of the verse is that about Swayamvaras. Krishna was there when there were Swayamvaras ceremonies, and he took away, at least these three ladies are mentioned here, Rukmini, Satyabhama, Jambavati. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that whereas, because he doesn't mention this, but I mean here, but he definitely does elsewhere, whereas the general system in Vedic society was that the parents, particularly the father, would arrange the marriage of his daughters, and sons too for that matter, but particularly the daughters. And yes, so that was how it would work. There was no dating, nothing of that sort, going to the disco and whatever. But these things were arranged in very responsible ways. But in some special cases, like in these ones, these are princesses from the highest families. So they would be able to choose who they'd want to marry themselves. And such events where they choose were called Swayamvaras. And yeah, they choose, or there were generally princes who would come to compete, royalty, young royal men. So they would compete to win the hand of the girl. But if the winner was not to the liking of the girl, she didn't have to accept because she was allowed to choose. So yeah, so Prabhupada talks about this, there's competition, there's fighting usually between the princes. And Prabhupada mentions sometimes some of them were killed. Yes. He says, in such marriage fighting. And the victorious prince was offered the trophy princess for whom so many princes died. How would you like that, gentlemen? Right, okay. So Rukmini was the main queen of Krishna in Dwaraka. She was the daughter of the king of Vidarbha, who wanted her to be given to Lord Krishna, but his eldest son, Rukmi, wanted her to be given to Shishupal, who was a cousin of Krishna's, and who was just not the right person at all. So there was a type of competition, actually, if you know the story, that it was just arranged. She would be given to Shishupal, but she sent a message to Krishna, please come and just take me away, steal me away. So Krishna came, and he did that. It wasn't exactly a competition. He just came and took her, just grabbed her out of wherever the program was going on, the marriage program. And then other of the royalty there, the friends of Shishupal, they all attacked Krishna and Krishna's associates, Lord Balaram also. And some of them were killed and some of them got smashed. Yeah, and eventually Krishna just rode away on his chariot with Rukmini, who was very happy. But Rukmi followed them, and, normally it'd be a fight to the death. But Krishna just defeated him and cut his hair. The same as what it was done with Ashvatthama. Same thing. Just cut off a whole lot of his hair and with pieces sticking out, because they had long hair, these people. So pieces cut off and some long hair sticking out. And it was very embarrassing for Rukmi. So anyway, that's what happened with Rukmi. And as Prabhupada says, as usual, Lord Krishna emerged successful, certainly. Yeah. And so Rukmini had 10 sons. The leader was Pradyumna, who's also a type of form, a partial form of Lord Krishna. And there were other queens taken away. And of course, in the verse, Satyabhama Jambavati are mentioned, but the really big one, which is mentioned in the second half of the verse, is how Krishna killed Bhaumasura and took away 16,100 princesses who were imprisoned there by him, by Bhaumasura. So he just killed the fellow who had taken charge of them, wrongly taken charge. Krishna just killed him and took them away. Yes. And of course, not just Bhaumasura, but so many of his assistants. So they had prayed to Krishna to rescue him. And Krishna did. So in the end, he had 16,108 wives in Dwaraka, queens. Each one had 10 children. And each one of them had 10 children. So the family, Prabhupada says, the aggregate of the family numbered in the millions. Really plenty. Okay, so now we move on to verse 30. All these women auspiciously glorified their lives. So again, this is the ladies on the roof saying that all those ladies means the queens and the gopis auspiciously glorified their lives despite their being without individuality and purity. That's interesting, isn't it? Let's see what Prabhupada says about that. Their husband, the lotus-eyed personality of Godhead, never left them alone at home. He always pleased their hearts by making valuable presentations. Okay, so let's have a look at the purport here. So Prabhupada explains, first paragraph, devotees are purified souls. As soon as someone surrenders to the Lord sincerely, the Lord accepts them, and they thus immediately they become free from all material contamination. In this way, they're above the modes, and whatever their bodily features, whatever they are, they're not disqualifications. Even if apparently someone doesn't look so attractive, doesn't matter at all. Prabhupada gives the example of Ganges water is not affected by any drain water which runs into it. So, anyway, so then Prabhupada goes on to explain about certain groupings of people are not so intelligent, so it's more difficult for them to understand, to become Krishna conscious. Women, Vaishyas and Sudras, they're not as intelligent generally as the Kshatriyas and particularly the Brahmins. And they're prone to be materialistic. And even less than them are the Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Pulindas, Pulkashas, Abiras, Kankas, Yavanas, Kasas, etc. I can't remember what all of these groups are, but the Hunas are the Huns. Means from like Mongolia, that's where the Huns came from. The Andhras are from Andhra Pradesh. Yes. Pulindas are Greeks. Yavanas are Turks. Kasas, I can't remember. We'll be coming to this verse sooner or later. So, we'll go through it all there. So, but all of them, whether it's the women, Vaishyas, Sudras, and what to speak of them, these lower than them, Kiratas, Hunas, Andras, Pulindas, etc., all of them can be delivered by properly engaging in devotional service. And then whatever Prabhupada calls them designative disqualifications. Disqualifications according to their natures in these different positions. If they are properly engaged, then all, any hangovers from being born or raised in the society of Yavanas, meat-eaters, or Sudras, all these things are removed. And then they become eligible to go back to Godhead. So, then the second paragraph, we note, of course, in the verse, the wives and gopis for that matter, but here we're talking particularly the focus. Prabhupada's giving more focus to the wives, that they were impure, but they were accepted by Krishna. So Prabhupada in the second paragraph explains that the princesses who are under Bhaumasura's control, they were considered, because of that, they were considered to be contaminated, being under the control of a low-class person and not under the control, if we use the term, of their parents, their father particularly, or their husband. Yes. So they prayed to Krishna, and through their prayer, Prabhupada says, their sincerity of purpose, they became pure. Therefore the Lord accepted them as his wives. And their lives became glorified, even though, having been in such a situation, if they had been rescued by anyone else, it's quite likely that they wouldn't have been able to get husbands, because they're considered contaminated through being in the place and under the control of some low-class person. But the queens became extremely glorious, and Lord Krishna was just completely involved in his relationships with them. And then the third paragraph talks about how he expanded himself. He had his 16,108 wives. He expanded himself to be with each one individually, like practically 24/7, unless he had to go away sometime to kill some demons or something like that. Yes. So as their husband, he pleased them with all sorts of gifts, presentations, even very costly ones. For Satyabhama, he brought the whole Parijata tree. He stole it from Indra and brought it down and planted it at the palace of Satyabhama. So if someone, Prabhupada concludes the purport, if anyone desires the Lord as their husband, the Lord fulfills such desires in full. He's just the best husband, most remarkable husband. So this point in the verse about without individuality, it seems Prabhupada doesn't really address that in the purport anyway. Such is life. So we won't get into it, but it's just an interesting point. I'll try and see if Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur or Srila Jiva Goswami say anything about it. For tomorrow I'll try and find out. Okay, now what? So, okay then. We're on to section D, the fourth section. Lord Krishna leaves Hastinapur. From verse 31 to verse 36, and then that's the end of this chapter. So we will be going on to chapter 11. So, okay, first of all, there's verse 31, which Srila Prabhupada at least has not given a purport to, although there's a little note here we have from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He gives a purport. But anyway, the verse, first of all, while the ladies of the capital, Hastinapur, were greeting him and talking in this way, the Lord, smiling, accepted their good feelings, and casting the grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. So even those who had not really met him before, because it's a big city, and not everyone got to really meet Krishna personally when he was there. The royal families, of course, they did, but others, they just heard about him. So, but now the Lord somehow glanced at all of them to give them his mercy as he left. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes interesting point, sort of like a special nectar point. By his glances, he pleased the women who had Shantarati, who had a neutral type of attachment to him. And by his smiles, he pleased those who had Madhurya Bhava, the conjugal mood. Yeah. So there we go, devotees. Let's see. Verse 32. Maharaj Yudhisthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defense, horse, elephant, chariot, and army, to accompany Lord Krishna, the enemy of the asuras, the demons. The Maharaj did this because of the enemy and also out of affection for the Lord. So, yes, Srila Prabhupada explains that these 4 things, horses, elephants, chariots, and men, infantry, they are natural divisions of armies. Yes. So the charioteers could fight with many horses and elephants by the strength of powerful arrows. The people on the chariots would fire their arrows like that, even up to the standard of the Brahmastra, similar to modern atomic weapons. So, Maharaj Yudhisthira knew Krishna's everyone's friend and well-wisher, but still some people don't like him. The asuras, the demons, who are by nature envious, they don't like Krishna. So out of fear of an attack on Krishna by such people, Maharaj Yudhisthira engaged, all these army configurations, all varieties of defensive forces as bodyguards. And Prabhupada makes the point, and of course we know, if required, the Lord can defend himself, it's no problem, even single-handedly, against just any number. But still, he accepted these arrangements of Maharaj Yudhisthira because he he felt, Prabhupada says here at least, he felt, oh, I can't disobey my cousin brother. I have to accept them. Yes. So, yeah, in this way, of course, Lord Krishna is playing the part in terms of the social relationships. He's playing the part of subordinate. So therefore sometimes he accepts subordinate positions, in this case under Yudhisthira, also under Mother Yashoda when the Lord was young, like this. It's all his transcendental Leela. Yes. And these, the bliss experienced by the Lord, by these devotees, when the Lord has these exchanges with them, there's just no comparison between that and the whatever bliss there may be in impersonal realization. Right. So now, yes, here we are, devotees. Srila Jiva Goswami makes a point. This verse, and don't forget, this verse means, this verse which is all about Maharaj Yudhisthira arranging for bodyguards, defensive measures for Krishna for when he's traveling to Dwaraka. So this verse describes the greatness of the king's prema. Though Krishna was the killer of Madhu, Yudhisthira arranged for his protection because of affection, seeing Krishna as if the Lord was not strong. He viewed Balaram and others in the same way. They're not so strong. We have to help them out, protect them. So verse 33, which is another verse with no purport, out of profound affection for Lord Krishna, the Pandavas, who were of the Kuru dynasty, accompanied him a considerable distance to see him off. They were overwhelmed with the thought of future separation. The Lord, however, persuaded them to return home, and he proceeded towards Dwaraka with his dear companions. So, as we said, there's no purport. So now we read verses 34 and 35, which are together. O Shonaka, this is Sutta Goswami speaking now. So, O Shonaka, the Lord then proceeded towards Kurujangala, Panchala, Shurasena, the land on the bank of the river Yamuna, Brahmavarta, Kurukshetra, Matsya, Saraswata, the province of the desert and the land of scanty water. After crossing these provinces, he gradually reached the Solvira and Abira provinces, then west of these reached Dwaraka at last. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point that those areas, at least some of them, or even all of them maybe, were differently named in those days from now. Yeah. But the direction is given so we can understand that he went through Delhi, then he went through Punjab, Prabhupada says, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Saurashtra, and Gujarat, and eventually made it to Dwaraka. And Prabhupada makes the point that there's no need, there's no profit in trying to research all these provinces and where were they and where are they now and how things have changed. But still, when it talks about the desert, the province of the desert and the land of scanty water, this is talking about Rajasthan and parts of Madhya Pradesh. Yes, they were, as now, there's the Rajasthan desert, Madhya Pradesh, certain parts are dry. That's what's said here. And they're still like that today. Such is life. Right. So those areas were like that even 5,000 years before. So, Srila Prabhupada makes a point that the theory of soil experts, he could have put inverted commas around them. Yeah, that the desert developed in recent years is not supported by the statements of the Bhagavatam. We can leave the geologists to research as they like, but we are happy, we're satisfied that the Lord went on a route and then he reached Dwarakadam, from Kurukshetra. Although, of course, Kurukshetra still exists. So, 5,000 years later, Kurukshetra is still there. Did you come there with us? Oh, you didn't? Okay, yeah. You've never been there. That's interesting. So Srila Jiva Goswami makes a comment. Going on the road, he went to places to meet the devotees. He went to Shurasena with a desire to see Vrindavan. Shurasena means Mathura, that area. So he went there with a desire to see Vrindavan itself. And, I read through Jiva Goswami's purport, and, he talks about this and he sort of conjectures, but he doesn't say that the Lord did go to Vrindavan. Although he did go to Shurasena, means Mathura, which is at just, 15 kilometers from Vrindavan. But he says, maybe he went, it's quite possible he went to Vrindavan, but he doesn't go so far as to say that the Lord went to Vrindavan. So, verse 36, which devotees, happens to be the last verse of the chapter. On his journey through these provinces, he was welcomed, worshipped, and given various presentations. In the evening, in all places, the Lord suspended his journey to perform evening rites. This was regularly observed after sunset. Right, so Prabhupada comments about this whole idea of in the evenings he would do evening rites, that some people may think that the Lord was obliged, because he's a householder, he has to do these things. Otherwise, he'll be wrongly situated, something to that effect. But, of course, it's not that. He did it. In fact, Prabhupada explains further on in the purport here, to teach others, just like it's explained Maharaj Yudhisthira would sometimes worship demigods when he was king. But it's not that he was into worshipping the demigods. What it was that some of the citizens, they were not able to become devotees. But they still, they were pious enough. They were attracted to deity worship. So to set an example for them that it's okay, you should do it, he would sometimes worship demigods to encourage them. If he didn't, then they would probably, quite possibly, become bewildered what to do, because they were not able to really become devotees. So therefore, Prabhupada says in the purport here, in italics, since the Lord is absolute, everything done by him is good for everyone. Yeah. When he comes to the earth, he protects the devotees, annihilates the non-devotees. He doesn't have to. Prabhupada says he has no obligatory duty. But he does everything so people will follow, so they'll learn. Yes. So, he himself. So Prabhupada, let me just read a little bit here. It's important. That is the way of factual teaching. One must act properly himself and teach the same to others. Otherwise, no one will accept one's blind teaching. He is himself the awarder of fruit of results. He is self-sufficient, and yet he acts according to the rulings of the revealed scripture in order to teach us the process. If he does not do so, the common man may go wrong. Yes. But in the advanced stage, when one can understand the transcendental nature of the Lord, one doesn't try to imitate him. Okay. And there's the next paragraph, that he does the duties, the regular duties, but sometimes he does something extraordinary. In the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada refers to it as the Ishvara principle. Ishvara basically in this context means the big controller, the master, the big master, the Ishvara. So, a lot of the time, the Lord does what is in Shastra for the common people, for the regular people. But sometimes, in terms of the Ishvara principle, he just does something he likes, just even though it's not according to the rules and regulations. And an obvious example, of course, is the rasa dance. There are other examples, but the obvious one is the rasa dance. Yes, so Prabhupada makes the point. Sometimes he does something extraordinary, but that's not to be imitated. His acts of evening prayer should be followed by everyone. But we can't imitate his lifting Govardhan Hill or dancing with the gopis. One can't imitate the sun, which can dry up water even from a filthy place. The most powerful can do something which is all good, but our imitation of such acts will put us into endless difficulty. And there Prabhupada concludes the chapter, the purport and the chapter, by making a very important point. Therefore, in all actions, the experienced guide, the spiritual master, who is the manifested mercy of the Lord, should always be consulted. And then the path of progress will be assured. So there you go, devotees. We've just finished chapter 10. What we're going to do is we're going to move on to chapter 11. Yes, why not? Good idea. So just give me a moment to open it up. Where is it? Here it is, coming, still coming. Chapter 11. Chapter 11. Lord Krishna's entrance into Dwaraka. So here, devotees, there are three sections. There are three sections. And those three sections are as follows. Section A, Krishna arrives and is greeted by the Dwarkavasis. That's what the title we've given it. Krishna arrives and is greeted by the Dwarkavasis. It's verse 1 to verse 23, quite a long section. Then section B, Krishna passes through Dwaraka. He arrives, but then he moves through the city. This is from verse 24 to verse 27. And then section C, Krishna enters the palaces. Verse 28 to 39. Right, so what we'll do, we've still got not 20 minutes, but not much short of it. Let us read the verses. Let's see if we can get through. I think we'll be able to get through. I'm sure we'll be able to get through. So, verse 1, Sutta Goswami said, upon reaching the border of his most prosperous metropolis, known as the country of the Arnatas, Dwaraka, the Lord sounded his auspicious conch shell, heralding his arrival and apparently pacifying the dejection of the inhabitants. Right. Because he's been away a long time. So, okay, verse 2. Now he's blowing his conch. The white and fat-boweled conch shell, being gripped by the hand of Lord Krishna and sounded by him, appeared to be reddened by the touch of his transcendental lips. It seemed that a white swan was playing in the stems of red lotus flowers. Verse 3, the citizens of Dwaraka, having heard that sound, which threatens fear personified in the material world, began to run towards him fast, just to have a long-desired audience with the Lord, who is the protector of all devotees. Okay, verse 4. Verses 4 to 5, actually, together. Oops. The citizens arrived before the Lord with their respective presentations, offering them to the fully satisfied and self-sufficient one, who by his own potency incessantly supplies others. These presentations were like the lamp offered during worship of the sun. Yet the citizens began to speak in ecstatic language to receive the Lord, just as wards welcome their guardian and father. Okay, verse 6. The citizens said, O Lord, you are worshipped by all demigods like Brahma, the four Sanas, and even the King of Heaven. You are the ultimate rest for those who are really aspiring to achieve the highest benefit of life. You are the supreme transcendental Lord, and inevitable time cannot exert its influence upon you. Verse 7. This is still the citizens. O Creator of the universe, you are our Mother, well-wisher, Lord, Father, spiritual Master, and worshipable deity. By following in your footsteps, we have become successful in every respect. We pray, therefore, that you continue to bless us with your mercy. Verse 8. Oh, it is our good luck that we have come again today under your protection by your presence. Although your Lordship is rarely visited, even by the denizens of heaven, now it is possible for us to look upon your smiling face, which is full of affectionate glances. We can now see your transcendental form, full of auspiciousness. Oh, sorry, I'm yawning. Verse 9, O lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura, Vrindavan, or Hastinapur to meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence seems like millions of years. O infallible one, at that time our eyes become useless, as if bereft of sun. And just a little point we can note. It's not discussed, Prabhupada doesn't discuss it here at least. But this verse that we just read here makes it pretty clear that Krishna went back to Vrindavan. He returned to Vrindavan. He went sometimes, yeah. Because it says, whenever you go. In other words, he's going from time to time. Right. So, verse 10. O Master, if you live abroad all the time, then we cannot look at your attractive face, whose smiles vanquish all our sufferings. How can we exist without your presence? Upon hearing their speeches, the Lord, who is very kind to the citizens and the devotees, entered the city of Dwaraka and acknowledged all their greetings by casting his transcendental glance over them. Verse 11. as Bhagavati, the capital of Nagaloka, is protected by the Nagas. They're the snakes, the celestial snakes. So was Dwaraka protected by the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoja, Madhu, Dasharha, Arha, Kukura, Andaka, etc., who were as strong as Lord Krishna. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what Prabhupada says about that. Verse 12, the city of Dwarakapuri was filled with the opulences of all seasons. There were hermitages, orchards, flower gardens, parks, and reservoirs of water breeding lotus flowers all over. Okay, verse 13. The city gateway, the household doors and festooned arches along the road were all nicely decorated with festive signs like plantain trees and mango leaves, all to welcome the Lord. Flags, garlands, and signs painted with slogans, all combined to shade the sunshine. Verse 14, the highways, subways, lanes, markets, and public meeting places were all thoroughly cleansed and then moistened with scented water. And to welcome the Lord, fruits, flowers, and unbroken seeds were strewn everywhere. Verse 15, and each and every door of the residential houses, auspicious things like yogurt, unbroken fruits, sugarcane, and full water pots with articles for worship, incense and candles were all displayed. Verses 16 to 17. On hearing that the most dear Krishna was approaching Dwaraka Dham, magnanimous Vasudev, Akrura, Ugrasena, Balaram, the superhumanly powerful, Pradyumna, Charudeshna, and Samba, the son of Jambavati, all extremely happy, abandoned resting, sitting, and dining. They hastened toward the Lord on chariots with Brahmins bearing flowers and other auspicious items. Before them were elephants, emblems of good fortune. Conch shells and bugles were sounded, and Vedic hymns were chanted. Thus they offered their respects, which were saturated with affection. Verse 19. At the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. Verse 20. Verse 20. Expert dramatists, artists, dancers, singers, historians, genealogists, and learned speakers all gave their respective contributions, being inspired by the superhuman pastimes of the Lord. Thus they proceeded on and on. Verse 21. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him. The Almighty Lord greeted everyone present by bowing his head, exchanging greetings, embracing, shaking hands, looking and smiling, giving assurances, and awarding benedictions even to the lowest in rank. Verse 23, then the Lord personally entered the city, accompanied by elderly relatives and invalid Brahmins with their wives, all offering benedictions and singing the glories of the Lord. Others also praised the glories of the Lord. So, devotees, I think we can just finish there, and tomorrow we'll at least start going through, I don't know how long it'll take, but we'll start going through that section of the 11th chapter of the first canto. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.